I'm Jim Murphy, and I'm a Cherokee, and I live in New York City. And it may seem a little strange to you that I should live in New York City, but it is the capital of the world, and I'm sort of like, how would you say it? I'm our ambassador, if you will, for all the information that's here. I would like to say before I get started too far into this that this is a copyrighted piece of material that we are making on December the 4th, 1988. My name is James R. Murphy, and I hold all rights to what we're going to do. I am explicitly giving it to the Cherokee Nation to use in their education program. I'm also explicitly giving it to other Indian educational efforts, and we will sell it to anyone else who wishes to participate in it. This is a circle of string, and what I would like to talk to you about is how you can practice learning using the circle of string. You will notice that I am playing with it, and it's all sorts of things that you can do with it. This happens to be a rather short string, about twice the length of my hands. It tends to be the sort of length that the people used to have. This is the beginning of most string figures. It's called opening A. Actually, it's opening B. Opening A is the right hand first, and then the left hand. This string is made out of 1/8 inch nylon cord. I don't know if you can see it too well, but there's a little blackened area that I have welded the string together by putting it into a candle and pushing it together until it softened, it hardened up, and it held itself together. That is not the usual way I make strings. As a matter of fact, the way that you will probably get to make strings is using a regular string from 5 and dime and a crochet hook. What you do is you make a little circle, go in. I can't hardly see because of my glasses. You will excuse me while I put my glasses on. Thank you. You might think of me, by the way, as your mother's older brother, as an uncle, and my job is to teach you. I do that and pull up so that I make a slip knot. I do a little thing and go into what is called the chain stitch, and I chain stitch forever. Long time to chain stitch. And I have another thing here that I have done that with. You will want to make your own strings because it is a function of the length of the string as to what sort of figures you can make. You'll also notice that I come prepared with a small scissors. After you have made the chain stitch for a while, you will take and join the ends. You will go into about the second loop so that it doesn't pull apart, and you will pull this through like that, and you will spread, turn, and go into here. This will take some figuring out and some practice, but you will want to make your own strings, and then you will carefully dovetail this into the string for a while. Turn and dovetail the other way for a while, generally longer than I'm doing right now, but I'm doing this just to show you how to do it. And one more time, just to hold it together. There we go. My scissors that I dropped. You'll also notice that this is sort of a fun thing to do, and you don't worry about doing it wrong. You practice until you can do it right. what I'm really talking about is developing your own sort of thing so that you can learn. Here is a small baby string. And I will make a baby figure. The first figure. That is opening A. I drop. It's just a two-loop figure. You will notice that I use the index fingers. And I go over all of the fingers. Well, let's turn it like this way. I don't know if you can see this. I go over all of the fingers and pick up the far string. I take the near index finger string, put it over the thumb, and do that. The near index finger string, put it over the thumb, and do that. Turn my hands up until I can see diamonds, and hold that string with my index fingers. I push off the little finger strings, and I turn my hand. Notice that I am holding that straight across string until I can lift it up, and I get two diamonds like that. You probably can't see it because it's a blue string. Let me show you that with my white string. Again, opening A, drop the thumbs, reach over and get the far string, pick up the near index, move it over, near index, move it over, hold that string, scrape that off, and turn your hand inside out, and you get two diamonds. That is the beginning of a system. If you can see, I pull from the middle, and it comes right out. Now, let's do something different. Remember, I do opening B with the left hand first. If I will take the index loop, pull my hand in that way, in and then that way, and then do everything else the same. We'll do it a little faster this time. I won't get two diamonds. I will get one large diamond. If I, on the other hand, do my right hand first in that fashion, and then everything else the same, I will get not one, two, but three diamonds. And strangely enough, if I do both hands and then the same thing, I will get four diamonds. And the thing to notice is that this part here does not hold itself. Okay. So what I was talking about with those two loop diamonds, the 1, 2, 3, and 4 diamonds, is a little system. A system of learning how to make different string figures from one position. Most of what I teach is a system. Mathematics is trying to find a system to keep order in a complex situation. You might say that trying to make string figures is a very complex sort of idea. And what I'm really talking about are string figures which have been made from time immemorial by all peoples. The whole world made string figures. Africans made string figures, Native Americans made string figures, the South Sea Islanders made string figures, Australians made string figures, Europeans made string figures also, but since it's a pre-literate activity, since it goes before you learn how to read and write, it has disappeared in some of the places in the world like Europe, except insofar as the children still play with it. And what is generally known as cat's cradle is an Asiatic string figure, Chinese, Japanese string figure. String figures are known all over the world. This next figure is the figure that my grandmother taught me. Now let me explain who I am. My grandfather was a welder in the oil boom towns in East Texas. That's why I grew up in Texas, why I was born in Texas. He's from Arkansas, and I'm Cherokee. And I'm sending this to the Cherokee Nation first before I send it to anyone else, because I really do feel that what I have tried to develop is a way of practicing learning so that you can learn anything. The fact that it happens to be string figures is only because of the fact that string figures are fun. And I look for something fun to play with in order to learn how to learn. Well, my grandfather moved to Texas in the oil boom times in the early 20s. And he was a welder. And he messed up his hands and did this, that, and everything. But he provided for his family. My father grew up. At the time he was ready to take over things, the Depression had hit. So he worked for the CCC, and then he came back and worked for the telephone company. And he always felt that education was the only way to prepare yourself to live in the modern world. So I became educated. That's one of the reasons that I'm in New York City. And one of the reasons that I do string figures is because I teach mathematics. And I teach mathematics at LaGuardia High School in New York City. And I teach a course in string figures, which is nothing but string figures for a whole term. And everybody comes to class and plays strings all day, and that's all they do. And what I'm trying to show you is what I teach them. And I believe, and my students tell me that I'm right, that if you will practice what I teach, you will learn how to learn. And you will become able to learn anything you want to, in any subject that you want to. It just takes work and practice, paying attention to fundamentals. And that's what I'm trying to teach you, are the fundamentals. Now this is what my grandmother taught me. And it is, she called it Jacob's Ladder. She was Christian. Instead of going over and picking up the 4 string, she went under. Perhaps I should turn this way. This doesn't start this way, it starts that way. She goes over and picks up the 4 string. And then she's ready to go. And I'm ready to go, and you're ready to go. Over 1, pick up, drop the little finger. With the little finger, over 1, pick up, drop the thumb. With the thumb, over 2, pick up. Now you're ready to end in exactly the same way we ended before. And this time you get 4 diamonds. Well, let me do that again. This string is slightly short. And I will do it a little faster so you can see what happens. Okay, over 1 pickup, drop away. Over 1 pickup, drop away. Over 2 pickup, do the finish, and there it is. The difference between this and the other 4 diamonds is that it holds itself right where my middle fingers are. But that is called Jacob's Ladder by the Christians. The Africans call it the calabash. It is just 4 diamonds. And it affords the chance to do some interesting things. Now, I keep wanting to look at it. I get here, and here, and here, and now I'm ready to go over 1 and pick up. If I go over 2, holding this out of the way, and picking up my near thumb string, I put 2 diamonds in the center. It may not look like that's what I've done, but that's exactly what I've done. Now I can start all over and do everything from the beginning. Again, this is slightly short string. If I do that, I get 6 diamonds. They're kind of hard to see because the string is so short. But that is 6 diamonds. Let me get another string. I have a lot of strings down here. There's another string, a little longer string. This will be a little more difficult to work with, but we will do it. You will also find that you will have to untangle your string quite often. That's one of the nice things to learn, is the patience to untangle. Again, I do this and go over 2 and pick that one up. That stores 2. Now I start from the beginning and do everything from the beginning. And this time I should get, well, here is the power loop. I put, notice my right hand, I put the little finger in the loop and the thumb in the loop. And I reach and I pick up the near little finger. And I reach and I pinch that and do that holding my thumb there. And you'll notice that begins to lift. I do the same this side and I lift and I can lift out that 6 diamond figure. That is called what I call the power lift. And I discovered that, or tried to figure out how to do that, because I had difficulty in picking up and showing complex figures. Because if you look at this, I only have 4 little places to pick up. My index finger and my little finger, and I have some complex information in the center and some length that I have to pick up. Now, of course, from this position, you can go back to here, which is like where you started. I can add 2 diamonds by doing exactly the same thing that I did in the beginning with my opening A after I dropped. I can turn it, get it this way, and lift again. And this time, you see, I have 8 diamonds by adding those 2 diamonds. And you will see here, where my middle finger is, that is a special 2 wrap position. And here, notice, is only 1 wrap. And here, there is no wrap. And that is basically all you can do with the 2 loop figures. Except, there is one last thing that was shown to me. Let's see if I can get this string. Now this string is a silk string. And it's a long performance string. And it takes a little while to get it straightened. I will double it for this. And I'm going to do Jacob's ladder. And there's Jacob's ladder. And now I'm going to stick my thumbs up, take my little finger and put it in here. Take my little finger and put it in there. A man on a plane back from Reno, when I was going for a National Indian Education Association meeting, showed me this continuation. He was a Rastafari, a man from Jamaica. I lift here the near little finger string and do everything else the same. And what that does is it gives me the diamonds, but it doesn't wrap. It wraps once and it wraps twice, much like what I did before. And that is about the end of the 2 loop patterns. Now I would like to go into what I would call the literature about string figures. String figures in general are 3 loop figures. This is opening A, opening B again. And it is 3 loops. And with 3 loops, those are the normal amount of loops that you use for the more complex string figures. There's a book out on how to make them by Carolyn Furness Jane. She is an anthropologist, and this book came out in 1907. And it was 3 years after people learned how to make string figures. And the 3 figures on the front, I hope you can see them, especially the one in the middle, are figures that are known only from the boards because people collected these before they knew how to write them down. And by the time they were able to write them down in 1904, they couldn't make these anymore in the position and in the cultures that made them. This is a Maru island figure, and I will show you how to make this figure a little later on. But the point that I'm making is that this is a book full of string figures which were collected around the world, and while it's difficult to learn how to do them from this, it's difficult to learn how to do a string figure in the first place. Once you know how to do a figure, you can do different things with it. I would like to show you some interesting string figures which you can do fairly easily. If instead of going under with the index finger like that, you go over and twist once, twice, and then go into the center. And then drop the 2 outside fingers, the little finger and the thumb finger of the hand you started with, you will find that you have made a fish spear, which is an Eskimo figure. And that's a fairly simple figure to make. It's dynamic, it's fun. 1, 2, walk these right there, ponk, and there you have your nice little fish spear. Another figure, which, let's see if I can find my green string here, is called the Apache Door. Now this particular string is made out of half wool and half nylon. You will find that there are all sorts of things that you can make strings of. Again, opening A. And this time I take and I put all the way over my hand. And I take and I put all the way over my hand. And I reach and I pick up the near little finger string with the thumb and reach and pick up the far thumb string with my little finger. It doesn't matter if it drops off. That's what you do. And then you do this mysterious looking thing here. You spread the thumb. See how the thumb is different from the other fingers? And you take it around and stick it up like that. And you will notice that there are two strings up here and one string down here. Well, you hold these two strings while you take your thumb all the way out and you stick your thumb back up the same way. And the other thumb you pull and stick it under and up and hold these two and come back and up the same way. And then you have this. And you take this off of the back and this off of the back and you have what is called the Apache Door. But it is a very nice figure. It is also found all over the world. As a matter of fact, whenever I saw it in Mexico, it was called La Cama del Diablo, the Devil's Bed. It is found in Africa. It is found in Guinea. It is a very nice figure. Now, there is another figure which I think is the figure which allowed me to make a mathematics out of string figures. It again starts with opening A. And you drop your thumb. And you reach with your teeth. And you get the far string. And you come under with one and under with the other and drop. And you have two strings on your index with straight across, straight across. Now you can do that another way. When you drop, you can come in from behind, lift it up, come in from under until it's straight across, and pull, and there you have it there also. This is what I call the loom. It is a figure called Tinman, and in the book James tells you how to do it also. But it doesn't explain it like I do, because I've tried to make a system out of it so that we can all learn how to make different figures. Once you're in the loom position, then you do what I call a weave. You reach under and you pick up the near little finger string on your thumb. Then you reach up without doing anything else and pick up the top index finger on your thumb. And then in the literature, you take it in your teeth and you take it over. In my way of doing it, I reach with my middle finger and lift up while I pull my thumb through like that. At any rate, that is weaving. In this position, you will see that there is a string which is caught on this and a string which isn't. The string which is caught, I drop off. That finishes that weave. You can do it by hand if you wish. Once you have finished the weave, you will notice that there is this center which opens up, and that's called the Eye of Moloch. Not that it matters a lot, but it will show you that you have done everything correctly. Now what you want to do is to get this loop back up on the top of your index. You'll notice that I don't disturb it in its, I just push it straight up and pull it over. I can do the same thing but lifting down like that. Now I weave again. Weave, weave, weave. And this time I don't drop this off. I reach and get the near index string. With my middle finger lift up and pin it tight, right? And I don't let that go. I drop my middle finger, I spread my hands, and I turn my hand, and I have Tinman. It's called Tinman because each of these X's where my finger is supposed to be a man doing a side straddle hop. Spread eagle. And there are 3 on the top row, 3 on the next, 4 on the next row, and 3 on the bottom row in the center. And that's what the missionaries called it, 10 men. But I think it's just a very nice web. And because it is a web, you can see this, I don't know if you can, I picked from the center and it comes out. That happens with most of the simple figures. Because it is a web, I can vary it. And if I get my original loom position, I can say that weave is an A weave. A, little a. To differentiate it from B. B is the far little finger string underneath. C is the far little finger string over. D is the near little finger string pushed under and then pulled over. And E is the near little finger string pushed over and then pulled under. And all of them make different figures and are different weavings that you can put into a figure. And you don't have to just do two weaves. You can say A, weave, finish, reset. C, weave, finish, reset. A. And ACA is an altogether different figure from AA. And what you should do is that you should make up a little table for all of the 100 two-weave patterns and the 1,000 three-weave patterns, so that you can practice doing A, B, and seeing that figure and thinking about it. Uh-oh. You see with the AB, it doesn't come out in the center. So you have to unravel it. And sometimes it takes a little time to unravel. Whoops. Notice that if I double here, it's a lot easier than doubling some other place. Now, if I do the A, and then take the A and hold it here and down flip on it, I do what I call a reciprocal or an inverse. And it erases the A. A and A prime, which you can do by just down flipping, A prime, A, both finished, erase each other. And C prime, whoops, C prime, C, both finish, erase each other. And that is a very, very powerful idea. That is the heart of what makes mathematics. The idea of a reciprocal and the idea of something which makes a system of that nature. It is a group. Now what I do to frustrate that, what led me to make many more complex figures, is if I weave an A. Now I want to weave an A prime, but I want to make it so that it doesn't disentangle. It keeps making a figure. So I go over the far lower index string, pick up the A, and then down flip it. That's what I call A universe A prime. Now when I finish that, it doesn't disentangle. B prime. A universe A prime. B prime gives me that figure. That figure is a more complex figure, and yet it's still open. And the reason it does that is because I barely frustrated that resolvement or that A prime disentangling itself by using that other string, the far lower index string, which I call the A universe string. As a matter of fact, if you go over this, you can pick up A, B, C, A universe A universe B, A universe C, A universe A prime. You can make all 10 weaves over that string, and that's 10 more weaves. By the same token, you can go over this string and make up all 10 weaves for another 10 weaves. That's B universe. A universe A, B universe A. C universe A. Push this under, pull this down is D universe A. Again, under, down is D universe. Push it over, and pull it under is E universe. So you have 5 universes, A, B, C, D, E, plus the regular weaves, each having 10, makes 60 different weaves just from that sort of an idea. And if you will read what I'm sending along with you, you will find many, many more universes, each of which have the 10 basic weaves. And you will find that there are 400, 500, 600 different weaves that you can make. And each time you make a different pattern, A universe, A prime, B universe, C prime, A prime, you will make a different figure. So there's virtually an infinite number of figures that you can make from this bloom position. Let me show you one which I make, which is bridge, which is a complex bridge, and which uses a thing called almost collapse, which if you'll read the literature that I'm sending along, you can find. C prime, A universe B universe C, A universe A prime. You'll notice I can do this rather quickly, and that's because I have practiced doing it. A, B prime. This figure is like a long suspension bridge. You can perhaps see it even despite all of the shadows on the back. And it will also let me show you another way of using the power lift. Now, this is a long, complex figure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to release the pressure without dropping it and hold these down here with my little fingers. Drop this off. Reach with my thumb into this hole and drop this off and lift with my thumb. That lets me come in here, hold this and pull it out of the way, come back in here, hold this and pull out of the way, so that I have a 2-loop situation that I can use the power lift with. And with the power lift, I can pull that figure up much more powerfully. And that is how you can take a complex Tinman figure and you can raise it with the power lift. Okay, as we were talking, I was talking about the Tinman system. There's another aspect to the Tinman system, which I call the different logics, for want of a better way of talking about it. All the things that I have discussed so far are looking at the loom as the loom, and then weaving all the different universes, what have you. There's also another thing that you can do. You can change the basic system before you weave. And I thought about that. And the first way that I thought of doing different was to do the same thing with the top strings that I did with the little strings. So I thought, well, perhaps if I just weaved near lower index string, that I would get a different position. And I did. And then I wove A, and I got that, which is a different figure, a rather interesting figure, but a different figure. So I said, wow, that's different. And I bet if I wove that way, that every one of the figures that I had woven from the basic loom position would be different. Sure enough, they are. And that led me to one of my favorite figures, which I call the Jaguar, because it kind of looks to me like it's the face of a jaguar. I have to do this in a long position. Now I weaved A off that. That's opening 2. Opening 1 obviously is the basic loom position. Then I do A, and then a very strange V universe A. And I do this because it was a way for me to make this particular figure pop. I lift the A, I go over the near index, I lay it on the far little finger string, I hold it until I can pull it through, and I reach back. That's B universe A. It's described in the literature, but what it really does, and then I extend it, is allows me to pull that figure up and to make that stylized, for me, Jaguar's face. It could be mountains with a river running on the bottom, twin mountains. It could be almost anything. But it's a very beautiful figure. And it comes from the idea of changing the logic system. And there are two different systems of changing the logic system that I've put into the literature. And you should read them and try them. Now, there are also other things that you can do with the Tinman system, which are specialty weaves. And if I can undo this, I will talk about a specialty weave. But let me talk about the students who have been in my class. I have taught string figures now for about 9 years. And the students in the class have taught me more than I have taught them. Because they are very, very happy to do different things. Now, they may not be as able as I am to systematize and to make real all of the possibilities that they can imagine, but they're much better than I at imagining difference. Here is what one of the students did. Woven A, finished and reset. And they did this. Pulled bottom lower index, pushed the top far index until the thumb could down flip in and then wove. That's a very strange weave. And then picked up the near index and slid everything until they could get a dancing diamond. And I really like that figure. But that figure comes from a student's figuring out how to weave differently. There's another student who did a similar kind of thing, and this is a release move. Release move, I call it, because it's simplified. And if I weave an A, finish, reset, and then weave both of them. By weaving both of them, I have released that center, and it falls down into that little funny thing there. You can actually release a lot of different things, and it is much like the idea of the dancing diamond, but it is different. There's another thing which introduces the idea of chirality. Chirality means left-handed and right-handed. There was an article in the Scientific American of May of '85, I think, which talked about string figures and Tinman. And it was a very interesting article written by a scientist who essentially said, look, you're doing everything the same with both hands. That means that everything that you do is going to have an even number of wraps. If you remember when I talked about the difference in the diamonds, I talked about 1 wrap and 2 wraps, but that's a wrap. And he says, you do Tinman, palm, and up. You get 4 wraps on the top string, 2 wraps in the very center, 4 wraps on the bottom, and 2 on the sides are 12 different wraps. But the fact of the matter is, it's an even number of wraps. And he went on to conjecture that you always have an even number of wraps. Well, you don't. Watch this. I lift this string, and then I lift this string, and then I do this, and it falls apart. And if you will look, there are 4 wraps on top, 4 wraps on bottom, and 3 in the center, which means that there are an uneven number of wraps. Now I'm going to turn this way so I can discuss why that occurs, and to discuss some of the mathematical complexity of string figures. This string is like a long, thin dolman. Mathematicians call that a torus. I'll make it slightly smaller. If I do opening A with the right hand and drop the middle fingers, it comes apart. If I do opening B with the left hand and drop the middle fingers, it comes apart. If I, on the other hand, do this left-handed and this left-handed and drop the center, it holds itself. That's altogether different. And that holding itself there is what happens when I do the Tinman, so that other weave. If I do Tinman, left hand, in that fashion, and weave, and extend, it holds itself in the 11 wrap condition. If I, on the other hand, do left hand and then right hand and then weave the same thing, it doesn't hold itself in the center. It pops apart. That is chirality. That is a left-handed, right-handed difference. And it is something which we will see more and more of as we get into more complex figures. And now I would like to show a figure which is in the literature called the two bears running away from themselves. And it's an Eskimo or an Inuit figure. And it's opening A or B. Lift the index finger. And from the top, lift the little finger out. The little fingers push the far lower thumb string away, hard from my forehand, until you can use the little fingers to pull down the near index, come in through here, hence that through, and slide these two thumbs together until you can join those two loops together. And that is called Pattillo, which is Eskimo for bringing together. Stick your thumb back in through here, drop both of those through, drop, hold, come get this string, do exactly the same thing. And when you do that, this falls apart, and you have all the two bears. It's just an abstraction of two bears. But it's two bears running away smaller and smaller until they disappear. But the idea of doubling that string can also be done from this position. Or indeed, it can be done from the loom position in Tinman. Coming under, lifting off, and double that one, coming under both of them, and lifting off, and double the bottom. I double both of those strings, or actually Pattillo brought them together. Now I weave A, and I extend, and you see that straight across string. I can reach back with my ring and little finger and pull it down and make a three-dimensional figure. And that can be done to any and all of the Tinman figures that you make by Pattillo-ing at least bottom index loops. Before I go any further, another figure which isn't really in the literature, not in the way that it's done here. I found out when I was on jury duty one time, and half Quechua and half Inca was on the same jury with me. We did string figures, and this is when he showed opening A, and he reaches over into the thumb loop, and he throws the thumb loop over, and it pulls apart. Then he takes your thumb, and he puts the thumb in here so that it sticks up in both of these, and pulls down the far index until he can reach the far lower, and he holds it against the flesh. Then he throws that back over until he can drop it through where he had held it before, and then he catches the sun. Let me show you that at speed this way. In, push, do, push, do, push, do. Catches the sun. That is remarkably like another Inuit figure, but a Siberian Eskimo figure. Again, turns over. This time, it doesn't reach through, it just goes over the first and pulls over, and pulls over, and you get what they call, oops, yeah, let me do that again, my hands got messed up. You will find that quite often, your hands will get mixed up, especially when you don't do these things for a while. But if you go back, what am I doing? I'm getting flustered. One shouldn't get flustered. One should pay attention to what you're doing. Think slowly and carefully until you can do what you're trying to do. There is the Siberian hut, like a little house. If I drop this, bear runs in that house. Big commotion, and two men. It's another, much like the Pattillo, and it will work with opening A. It would not work with this opening. Okay, now one last thing about the Tinman. I guess I can do it this way. It's a performance figure. I always wanted to do very complex figures. Since I've done this for 9 years, I've practiced a lot. One of the problems I set myself was to make a 5-pointed star. Well, here's the way that I first made a 5-pointed star. I did the loom and Pattillo the bottom loop only. Then I roll the bottom loop once, twice toward me, and the top loop once, twice away. Then I took the top loop on my thumbs down through toward me and back up. And then I did an A universe A, weave, finish, reset, and a B move on top, weave, finish, reset. And that was setting the logic. And then I did A, V universe A. You should learn the V universe A weave. And then I extended it. And this little hang down thing here is the 3D string, but instead of making 3D, I lifted it up and I made my 5-pointed star right in the center. Difficult to think about how to do that, and I sort of happened on it. And as you were doing the figures, you will every once in a while hit upon a figure which really is a beautiful figure, and it will teach you to pay attention. Because the worst thing in the world is to make the world's greatest string figure and not remember how you did. Because when you're making your own figures, there's nobody else to tell you how to do it after you've done it. You have to develop your memory. You have to develop your attention so that when you do something well, you practice doing it until you can remember it forever. Okay, now we're ready for an entirely new set of figures, which are Eskimo figures, or actually what I call the North American Indian figures. Tinman comes from the South Sea Islands, from the Pacific Islands. The figure I'm going to do now is an Inuit Eskimo figure, and it starts with opening A, and it goes over the near index, under pickup, near little finger. Reach with the thumb and lift far thumb. I call that going into the well, topping the thumb. Go over the near index and pick up the far little finger. And that is the first weave. Now you're going to change the way the figure is on your hand. You're going to transfer middle finger loops to your little finger underneath. You're going to drop index. You're going to reach with your index from underneath and pick up both of those loops. And you're going to hold down like that. And now you're ready to finish weaving. Again, you go in this hole, pick up the far back string, pull it down until you can reach back, and you'll notice that you have made another loop on the bottom, and you hold it down. Now you've got the bottom fixed. Now you stick your thumb up through, come back through the same hole, kick out the bottom, and lift out, and drop your thumbs, and you have the Inuit fishnet. And it, like Tinman, is capable of being changed and make a new figure. You should practice that. I guess I can do it this way until you get good at it. Over, pick up, into the well, down, transfer, hook. Start it again. It's hard to do with a double finger. Opening A, over, pick up, into the well, over, transfer, drop, transfer, hold. Weave down, transfer, hold, weave up, drop. And there is the figure. Now, there are certain things that you can do with that figure. If you analyze it, you can see that that is the first weaving pattern. Now, if you drop your little finger and roll this index finger half away from the top like that on, you will find that there is a straight across string on top, there's a straight across string on bottom, and it's as if you have an opening A position, but you have that complexity inside. You can do the same thing again. Over, pick up, down, drop, roll away. You have two in there. You can do the same thing again. This time, perhaps, the third time, you might wish to complete the Inuit net the way that you have learned and practiced until it's all very easy to do. And you have a different complexity. You can use the power lift, and you can pull out that complexity in that nature. You can make all sorts of different weaves continually like that in the Inuit net or the opening A position. Let's go back. You will find that these are much more difficult to take apart. There we are. Aha! Opening A. Now, another thing that you can do, which I call the iterative process. Iteration, iterative, means you do the same thing again and again and again, and you get the same sort of result in the figure. Let's do the beginning of the Inuit net and get back to the opening A position. Now I want to roll the entire figure over this way on my hands so that I can attack it from the rear. And the way I decided to do that was to use my middle finger to come into the thumb and lift it away. Use my thumb to come under and pull and drop my little finger. Push this back from under and roll that one time. Now I'm from the back. Bongy, 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 bongy. Now I've done it. Drop and roll away. And now I iterate. And I do the same thing again. Drop, roll away, and iterate. I do that several times, and then I do the Inuit net from the beginning. Notice that my hands are fairly practiced at this, and you should practice until you get that good. And then I use my power lift, and you can see that I have a fairly interesting figure. And that figure does the same thing again and 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 again, as long as you have the hands to pull it out and the patience to make it proper. You can obviously turn it over, and it looks like a bow. Now, that's one way that you can make different figures from the Inuit net or the opening A position. You can do the same thing, and whenever you iterate, go once in the center, twice, 3 times in the center. And if you do that, iterate once, twice, 3 times. Do that, iterate once, twice, 3 times, and then do that. Finish. You get a different sort of figure. Using the power lift to pull it out, you can see that there again is a very interesting geometry, but it will make this and this and another and another and another as long as you do the same thing. Now, there are also other figures in the literature. Now, the literature is essentially found way back in the back of the Royal Anthropological Society notes, 1928, things of that nature. If you look at the bibliography or the books which are cited in the back of James, you will find a list of these kinds of things. And in the back of each of the articles are another list. You will find descriptions that they have found getting these figures from different societies, different cultures, all over the world right after they figured out how to do them in 1904. So between 1910 to 1950, they collected figures. The Inuit net, for example, was collected by Diamond Gennis in an expedition between 1913 and 1916 that he made up in Eskimo. James has another figure, which she calls the Navajo, or Dine, mini stars. Instead of going over one and picking that up, it goes over two and picks up the near little finger, end of the well, over one and picks up. And this one drops the little finger, rolls this half away, picks up the near index, comes in, pulls down, walks over to finish the bottom, takes the thumb out, and then weaves out the top. And that is many stars. You should practice doing that too. But what it does is that it gives you different weaving patterns from the opening A position. So that I can do the Inuit beginning, drop and roll away, and then the many stars, drop and roll away, and then the Inuit from the beginning. Just to show you another way of weaving, that you can change that, and you get a different figure. But what's really exciting to me is something that one of my students chanced upon based on Pattillo opening A and using the Navajo mini stars, or the Dene mini stars, as a way of going about things, and he got a marvelous three-dimensional figure out of it. Opening A, Katillawik the thumb, and Katillawik the little finger. If you Katillawik the little finger, you come in from behind and take it off. Come in from behind and turn your hand over. Tinman, double Katillawik. Now, I reach over and I pick up the non-transverse. You'll see on my little finger here, I have one string which doesn't go straight across, crosses itself, and one string which does go straight across. I reach over and pick up the string which doesn't go straight across, go into the well, go over both index and pick up the bottom, drop and roll away, push back. I do the same thing. I go and I pick up the non-transverse, into the well, over both and pick up. Now here, over both and pick up. Here I drop the index loops entirely, stick my index finger in there, and I pull apart. And I get this marvelous three-dimensional situation. You'll notice that it comes apart in the center. That again is our old friend chirality, because I used opening A. Let me do the same figure, except I will build it up this way. You might be interested to know, whoops, let me do that again. Build up, build up. And what that does is that it makes a spiral. You see, if I turn my both hands, it doesn't touch each other. If I turn the other way, it touches both. That's a spiral. Katillawik, Katillawik. Reach over, get the non-transverse, into the well, over both, roll away, reach over, get the non-transverse, into the well, over both, drop, go apart, This time it holds itself in the center and it makes an entirely cohesive 3D picture. And you can make all sorts of different weaves. And I will try to make a complex figure to show you here. Again, I put the chirality in it, and I double, and I double. This time, I'm going to do the Inuit beginning over only one, and roll away. The Inuit, and if I take the Inuit and don't down flip from the inside, but down flip from the outside, that gives me the reciprocal over one. But since I have a complex weave, it doesn't disentangle. Now I do the Navajo. And I go from the inside. And if I down flip from the inside, I get a half hitch. And it holds itself there. And that makes an interesting difference in the finished figure. Then I crop and roll away. And I again pick up the non-transverse, being careful because it's more complex this time. Down flip from the inside for the half hitch. And you see the double half hitch situation on the end out here. Over both, pick up, drop, and spread my hands. And I get a much more complex three-dimensional figure. See, kind of nice. Now, if I drop and do the two diamonds, remember the two diamonds? From the beginning of the two diamonds, I get a situation like this. Now, if I do this, I get animation. And it's more like an alive creature. And these are some of the sorts of things that you can do with string figures. And it all comes from these simple beginnings